All right, what's up, guys? Happy Friday. Chuck and Nick here to bring you hopefully a good NBA slate. We have some Boston stuff going on that's kind of super chalk Nemius Keita, so we'll hopefully be able to figure that out for you guys. But how we doing today, Nick?
Yeah, man, not bad. Definitely a few pieces of news we're waiting on here. The Nemesis Keita chalk is certainly a talking point for sure. But yeah, it's a decent size slate. It's not one of these ones with like 10, 11 games. I think it's pretty easy to kind of work through everything. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Desmond Bain's a piece of news we're waiting on. I think there's a few others. Kind of hoping we get more value to open up because right now it's like this Keita guy seems kind of unavoidable, which does not feel great.
Yeah, I'm currently playing but I even debated not playing DraftKings today when I thought Jaylen Brown was going to be out because I didn't want to have to play both Brissett and Keita. But Jaylen Brown is in, and so I don't know if we have to even get to Brissett. Maybe it's Lamar Stevens. Either way, but Keita, I mean, he's a starting center at 3K. We kind of saw this with Jericho Sims last week, and Jericho Sims, at least he had power forward eligibility, but he kind of does absolutely nothing when he's on the court. I have higher hopes for Nemius Keita. He had pretty good stats over in the G League last season. He averaged 18, 9, and 3 assists in 29 minutes. So at least we know he can play ball to some degree. Orlando, I made a joke about he has to see Goga Batadze in the post. I'm not joking that much. Goga Batadze is pretty good on defense, but either way, 3K for Keita. I think that we just play him and not worry too much about it. We have a couple other pieces of news. Zion is available to play. Jordan Poole is available to play. DeAndre Hunter is out. The reason Brissett came up was Delano Banton is also ruled out, but again, Jaylen Brown's in, so I don't think it should matter. They're only missing Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis.
And Cornet.
And Cornette, yeah, that's a big one, man. I would have jammed Cornette, no problem, if he was in today. And then Mark Williams is out again for Charlotte. So Nick Richards, his price is probably where it's supposed to be. I'm not sure we're going to get there that much, but is there any other pieces of news that we should be aware of today?
Yeah, I mean, the big one for me is Desmond Bain. I'd love to go back to Derrick Rose and Jaron Jackson and feel good about it. As things stand, I think you could go to those guys, but obviously with Bain in, that's going to cut into their usage big time. Other than that, I mean, I'm interested to see if the Suns roll out their big three again. I know they've been resting guys, like taking turns resting. Um, I don't know. It seems like they're all in. None of them are on the injury report. But yeah, we were waiting on the Pool news. We were waiting on Zion. They're both in, so I think we're good to go there. So yeah, really nothing major other than that Desmond Bain piece of news. And I don't know. I think he'll probably play. I'm just kind of hoping he doesn't.
Yeah, same. Derrick Rose has actually been pretty good. Don't mind getting to him at that 5K price on DraftKings. We did get D'Angelo Russell and Cam Reddish
Oh yeah, I forgot
late
about
adds
that.
to the injury report. D'Angelo has a headache, and Cam Reddish parentheses knee. So I have no idea what to make of it. If they're out, it's obviously a boost to guys like Torian Prince, probably Rui Hachimura, and then for D'Angelo, Austin Reeves, who's been fantastic, he'll get a little boost, so he should probably be a little bit popular as well. So let's just go ahead and dive into it, unless you had something else you wanted to bring up.
No, I was just gonna say I thought I saw Prince was also questionable earlier in the day. I don't know if that's still true, but yeah, if all those guys are out, Rui would definitely be someone we'd be looking at. Um, Yeah, let's see here. Torian Prince questionable as well. So yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I missed
There,
that one.
I mean, we'll see what happens there, but maybe some value does open up.
And LeBron and AD, they're both questionable. So last time LeBron actually did miss the game, AD ended up playing. I thought it would have been the opposite, if anything. So keep an eye on that. The schedule's kind of weird today. We have the New York Phoenix game 2 hours later than every other game. All the other games start within an hour of lock. So we should have that news kind of early, and then we can kind of relax on late swap for a little bit. Grayson Allen is back for Phoenix. Not sure how much we're going to be interested in him with, if assuming the big three is playing. If one of them's out, then Grayson Allen, I mean, his price is 5,400. It's not terrible, but
Right.
it's a spot we can consider still.
Absolutely.
And PJ Washington also ruled out. I think he left the game like 3 minutes in last time, like rolled ankle or something, or
Yeah.
shoulder/bicep. I don't even know what that means. So even better for Nick Richards, even better for Miles Bridges. So I think we got through all the injury stuff. Let's just go ahead and dive into. Let's start with center today, actually, since Keita is going to be a pretty big piece of the slate. We haven't projected for 78% ownership over on DraftKings.
You're
Excuse
allergic.
it. Yeah, it made me sick. And then 55% on FanDuel. It's a little bit weirder on FanDuel because we can only play one center, but he has been priced. And I don't know that there's another center that we're super interested today. But who else should we be taking a look at?
I mean, Richards is going to see more secure minutes with Washington out. I mean, we've seen situations with just Mark Williams out where he's been taken off the floor to play Richards at the five. I mean, Washington at the five. So he is safer than he usually is again with Washington out. I'd have to like the matchup for Miles Turner. I mean, everything in that game between Indiana and Washington at least has some GPP appeal. And then I like Capella. I've been playing a lot of Capella lately. They've been giving him a few more minutes, which for him actually makes a major difference. And then I was going to be interested in Joval with Zion out. I'm still a little bit interested, but it seems like they did raise his price on both sites, so he's a little bit tougher to get to. There's a few guys that have power forward eligibility. I'm also going to consider, but we could talk about them when we get to forward. I will just say Embiid always has a massive ceiling. It's just tough to get there tonight. I think the spread was like 15 points last I checked, something ridiculous. He could get there in three quarters, but I don't know that you want to allot all that salary to center when most people are going to be paying down.
No, I agree. And I like that you brought up the Jonas Valanciunas. I think he's a pretty good GPP piece over on DraftKings at 7,100 at 4% ownership. Don't mind getting to him some there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was, so we have another new highest total of all time in NBA history, Indiana, Washington. And so we definitely want to be interested in pieces from this game. Miles Turner, prime candidate. And then Gafford actually is coming in for 5% ownership at 5,600 on DraftKings. I think that's a pretty good spot too.
Yeah, no, I missed that one. He missed a couple games, but yeah, he was back last time out. Not a guy we usually see go over 30 minutes, but like I said, I mean, everything in this game has upside. 260 and a half total is just ridiculous. So at the price, sub 6K, I think he does make some sense if you need to get to him.
And so it seems like this is going to be a theme all season where whoever Indiana is playing, it's just going to have an insane total. I mean, 262, it's just ridiculous. And it's an 8.5 point spread. Like, it's not blowout territory. But it is a bigger benefit for whoever is playing Indiana than it is for Indiana. Just the Indiana guys, they're in these high total games every single day, and their prices are more reflective of the pace of game where the other teams usually aren't. And so I think that targeting one or two guys from Washington is pretty good today. And then the other game environment I wanted to mention too was Toronto Atlanta. We just saw this matchup, and Toronto isn't as chalk as they were on the previous slate, but basically all of them got there. I mean, Scotty Barnes had a good game. Jakob Poeltl went off. OG Anunoby had a good game, but kind of disappointing for how chalky he was. But I think we can go right back to a bunch of these guys today. And we see Siakam has that center eligibility on DraftKings. Prefer to play him in power forward as always. But are we going back to Toronto, Jakob Poeltl anyway?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Pirtle. And I mean, really all the starters are appealing here. I mean, this is as big of a pace up as you see. They're all priced about where they should be. They're healthy, so there's not like major pricing discrepancies, but they usually play pretty slow. And Atlanta makes everyone play fast, similar to what the Pacers do to opposing teams. So yeah, going right back to Toronto here. I think they all make sense. Last time it seemed like Gary Trent was really popular off the bench. I don't know if he's still drawing major ownership today, but that would be one piece I'm kind of comfortable fading. Just hasn't been consistent shooting or with the minutes. But if he's low owned, he does make some sense. But yeah, I'm definitely getting outside of centers now, just talking about all these Raptors because they do definitely appeal to me in a paced up matchup with Atlanta.
And we have a couple comments here. Ernest, new to this channel / podcast. My approach was all wrong. Plus, I'm tired of losing all my money. Hey, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you trusting us for the information that you're looking for. And I've been wanting to talk about this. I know that most of what we talk about on here is talking about the players, but I really hope you guys are taking away like more so than just which players to play. Like, that's the whole game, picking players, right? But overall roster construction and contest selection. And we've talked about it a little bit. So if you have any questions about stuff like that, please feel free to always throw it in the chat. We're happy to help you guys out. And then we have another comment from Metal Alloy. Can't imagine Cato will play 30 minutes. Which other backup centers are viable for minutes if he doesn't play or if he gets into foul trouble? So I tried to dive into the Boston rotation from the last few games, and it's tough because, Horford, Porzingis, or both were in. Luke Cornett was in. And Boston they don't have another center on the roster. And so I tried to look at maybe if Sam Hauser or Lamar Stevens. Lamar Stevens, he's like 6'6". I don't think he can really play center. Maybe they could go small. but I think it could be Sam Hauser, and they just go really small with their lineup. Do you have anything there?
I mean, my gut says that it might be Stevens just because he's a really good defender, and he can defend in the post. I know he's kind of undersized, but Hauser's kind of known as a shooter. I don't know that they really want to put him down there boxing out Banchero and Batadze, etc. So when Keita's off the floor, I mean, we could see a little bit of Tatum at the five, which is definitely appealing. But yeah, the issue is not only is their starting center out, not only is Horford out, but also Cornette, who would usually be the answer to this question, is also out. So they have no depth at all at center tonight. I did see this guy get called up, Drew Peterson. I don't even know who this is. I don't even know if he's a center. I don't even think he's in the player pool, so we don't have to talk about him. But again, they have no depth as far as bigs are concerned tonight. So I don't know. Maybe they call this guy Peterson up. I know some people were talking about Brissett. Definitely undersized if you're going to put him in the front court. So I think it might be Stevens, even though he's only 6'6", just because he's kind of defensive minded. But again, they could kind of run small here. The Magic have Batadze, but after that, I mean, Mo Wagner's their backup center listed, and he's not really a true center. So I don't know that they need to run big for the whole game.
Yeah, that's something they could do too. If both teams go small, just we haven't seen this situation from the Celtics before, so we really don't know how comfortable they're going to be running Tatum at the five. And so we'll just have to see. I don't think that there's anyone on the bench we're going to like target just in case Keita loses minutes or gets into foul trouble or whatever. We have Keita projected for 19 and a half minutes, I think, 19.3. And I mean, it's not great, but I do think he has the potential to play more as long as he's playing well. So I think we just play Keita and move on right there, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And then sorting by the index, of course, Joel Embiid is at the very top. As Nick mentioned, he's coming in for super low ownership. He's playing Detroit, which we love playing centers against Detroit, but he's very expensive. And I mean, it's a 16-point spread, so this is blowout territory. Embiid has regularly got there in just 3 quarters. I don't know if Detroit can keep it close to make Embiid play that fourth quarter rotation today, but if you want to take some GPP shots, if you can find some other value, I think it's fine. And then Anthony Davis and Wembanyama are the other centers pulling some ownership. I don't mind getting to either of them either. Do you have a preference between the two?
I think it depends on site. I think on DK I prefer AD, and then on FanDuel I prefer Wemby. AD's 11-3 on FanDuel, so he's just really tough to get to, and you also get the stock upside on FanDuel, extra points for blocks and steals, which definitely favors Wembanyama. So it kind of depends on which site you're playing on. I definitely prefer AD on DK, Wemby over on FanDuel, and you could play them at power forward on either site. So definitely could play them with the Beta Chalk or Nada Chalk, whatever the host's name is. And yeah, feel pretty good about the upside that you have with these forwards.
I'm going to agree with that too. And then just some other guys. I already mentioned Pascal Siakam, but Julius Randle as well has power forward eligibility over on DraftKings. I think he's a pretty good play against Phoenix. He's been really consistent lately.
Yeah.
And I think he started off slow this season, but he's back to being the Julius Randle that we expect, coming in for modest ownership, 12 and 15%. I think he's a fine play. Miles Turner, I mean, Zion has center eligibility, but we mostly want to play him in the power forward spot. Now, Zion, I pretty much just auto fade Zion every slate. I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but
Yeah, as long as they're healthy, I am. I mean, if Ingram were out, I'd probably get a little bit more interested, or if Joe Val was out. I will say this about Randall. I really, really like him. I was going to wait till forward to talk about him, but it's tough to find much I like from that late game. And you mentioned that there's that 2-hour gap. Randall's probably my favorite play from that Knicks and Suns game. I just think he's been awesome, and it's a pretty good matchup. And we're also seeing him get extra rebounding opportunity here. I know they have Sims and Hartenstein taking over from Mitchell Robinson, but Randall does kind of take over as a center at times, especially defensively. So he's getting extra rebounds, I think. I don't know if that's a fact statistically, but logic says he should be. And I think just looking at the points he's been scoring in his game log, it seems to line up.
And looking at Sims and Hardenstein, I mean, Sims, I don't even know how interested I'd be if he was still min price. Now he's up to 4K. And Isaiah Hardenstein, I mean, 5,100, 5,700. He's still a GPP play, but he's not someone that I'm going to do anything to try to get more of.
They just signed Taj Gibson too. I think he's dressed tonight, so proceed with caution there.
Okay, I think I did see that. Yeah, he's or no, I'm sorry. I saw James Johnson's ready to make his
Oh yeah, they
Pacers,
need
thank
him
you.
to fight Giannis next time they play. That's the only reason they signed Johnson. But
Oh, he's gonna fight Thanasis at a halftime kickboxing match. So
oh, nice man. Well, they got the
yeah,
UFC card tomorrow. We lost a
nice.
couple fights on that. Maybe they can throw him in as a replacement. I definitely tune in.
And if you guys didn't know, James Johnson's like a 12th-degree black belt. He has a 20-0 kickboxing record. He's had like actual MMA fights. Probably the most feared person in the NBA to get in a fight with. So that's why the reason for the jokes with the Pacers
Yes,
signing him.
absolutely.
Just some other guys. So we talked about the New York centers. Yusuf Nurkic has been really good, even with the big three in. I think he pulled down 20 rebounds in the previous game. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get there on the main slate, but if you're playing the night slate, he should still be pretty low on there. I think that's a pretty decent leverage point. And then Sengun, Jaren Jackson, and Nick Richards, Gafford. And I think Batadze is a pretty decent GPP play. And I think that's all the centers we should be interested in playing today. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to even get away from the chalk. I brought up Capella early. I do like him,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
yeah, that's really it. I don't mind Sengun if you get to him. Pretty good matchup here against Memphis. Low total, though, so not really a priority.
And I think that's it for centers. Let's go ahead and move on to forward. So I think we both are in agreement that Julius Randle is a phenomenal play today. Definitely our favorite play from that last game anyway.
Absolutely. Yep.
On the night slate, I imagine I'm probably going to have close to 100% of him. On the regular slate, I'm still over the field. Not sure what I ended up with in my adjustments. But other forwards, I mean, Pascal, Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes had a really good game last time, and he's projected 12 and 14% ownership. The other Toronto chalk-ish, I guess, chalk, is still pretty good, but I think we can bump up Scotty. We talked about this last time too, and I don't think Scotty's score ended up mattering just because the Pelicans put up just stupid stats.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And so, but other forwards, I mean, how should we be more interested in Tatum and Jaylen Brown?
Um, I mean Tatum definitely. Jalen at his price, pretty appealing as well. I mean the thing about Tatum is like he never seems to be popular. He's priced about where he should be. We know he has that 60-point ceiling. Not a bad matchup here against Orlando. And like I said, I mean maybe he slides down and gets more rebounds with this front court being so thin. I like Tatum here. I happy to get to him, especially at low to reasonable ownership. Obviously, he would have been pretty chalky if Jalen Brown was ruled out. We got that news nice and early, so we're seeing Tatum sub 5% on both sites. As far as tournament plays go, really, really do like Tatum in high risk contest tonight.
I like that. And you mentioned that he really hasn't hit his ceiling as much as we would have expected from Jason Tatum, but he's been pretty consistent around that 45, 50 fantasy point mark. So he's not going to kill our lineups. And then he does have the potential to put up that 60 plus burger that, we want to win a tournament. And at 4%, I don't mind taking the shots there.
Yeah. Should be extra usage with Porzingis out. I know that everyone's playing Kata, but I mean, it's not because we expect Kata to have some high usage rate. Porzingis demands a lot offensively, so there is more to go around for these Celtics starters tonight.
Yeah, and on that Cato note again, this has come up a lot recently. It's not like we're not expecting Cato to put up 30 plus fantasy points, but if he just gives us a reasonable score, it's more of what he allows us to do with the rest of our lineup to more comfortably fit in guys like Tatum and Randall in the same lineup,
Exactly.
and not have to play, I don't know, guys who just aren't good.
Yep. So few words. I agree.
Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma. So we're kind of hoping Desmond Bain takes a little bit of a rest tonight. If Desmond Bain plays, I don't think that we have to get there. But if he does sit, it would open up a lot on Memphis. And then Paolo Banchero on the other side of this Kata chalk at 1% and 3% ownership. He's 8,300. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe something changed, but Orlando and Boston were the 1 and 2 seeds in the East recently. Paolo's been great. I don't mind getting to Paolo at this 1% ownership. We saw him come in at like 50% last week when he was only a couple hundred cheaper. I know it's a tougher matchup, but I like getting there as a little GPP pivot.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Seems like no one's rostering him. I was going to say Franz Wagner too, a little bit cheaper. Not much cheaper though, but I think if you're landing on either of those guys, you can feel pretty good about it.
And I like Miles Bridges without PJ Washington. It's just, potential for a couple more minutes, a little bit more usage with that bench unit possibly. Keldon Johnson was a guy that was popping a little bit for me. It looks like the field's getting there, 17 and 16% ownership. As long as he's under or around the 7K price, I like him as a GPP play basically every single night.
Yeah. I did want to bring up Denny Avila. I like him a lot tonight, especially on FanDuel where he's 6K flat. You can play him at either forward position. Again, he hasn't been awesome or anything, but this game has a 260.5 point total. Um, yeah, I mean, he does everything: rebounds, assists, points. Should play plenty of minutes here. If you can't get to Kuzma, which I'm having trouble doing, especially since I'm playing a lot of Randall and Tatum, I think Denny is a really, really solid play, floating around 6K on both sides.
And Londo, favorite 3 plays. We will give you that after we go over the guards. I have an idea of my top 3. I mean, Cato's probably number 1. Just I
Yeah.
am under that 80% ownership, whatever. I think I was around 60% in my last run. But we'll give you our favorite plays. I just want to make sure we don't miss anyone. If I give it to you now, it might be a little bit premature.
Mhm.
So we talked about the Toronto guys, OG Anunoby. I think he's fine to get back to. I mean, 64 and 6,500. The ownership isn't terrible, 17 and 24%. It's not a guy that I love getting to, but I don't mind it against Atlanta. Bojan Bogdanovic looked great in the previous game, put up a monster points total.
Mhm.
And who else from this mid range are we looking at?
Austin Reeves, I think regardless of whether or not those guys are in for the Lakers, the more of them that are ruled out, probably the better. But even just coming off the bench, getting his regular run, the price is creeping up, but this is a good game environment for him on the road in San Antonio. Pretty high total. He's been one of the more consistent secondary options for the Lakers. He's been more consistent than D'Lo lately. And again, if D'Lo sits, maybe he slides in the starting lineup. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a good thing for him. But either way, I think at his price, Reeves makes a lot of sense in that mid range. And then you mentioned Hunter was ruled out, I think.
Yeah, let me
Yeah, so
refresh.
Sadiq Bey is going to definitely be appealing here again. I know that the matchup's better for the Toronto guys as they're going to be paced up, but Sadiq Bey, 6,100 on DK, definitely appealing. And then Bogdan off the bench, kind of scoring dependent, but you can play him small forward either side. He has flashed a very, very high ceiling these last few games. So I do like the wings there for Atlanta.
Yeah, I think I prefer Sadiq Bey. I mean, Bogdan, I just have such trouble getting to him at this price, but he's smashed it a couple times recently. So if
Yeah,
that's your GPP play, I think that's okay. We've seen, I think it was Wesley Matthews starting the last game. If I'm not mistaken, Garrison
yeah.
Matthews started the game before, but it seemed like spot starts. They didn't really get real rotation minutes. They are cheap though, and so maybe if they're the last play in, then it's not the worst thing in the world. But projected for less than 20 minutes. Not gonna love it there, and so Atlanta. It just seems like everyone's kind of appropriately priced. Even Trey and Dejounte probably don't mind being there. I think Clint Capella is still going to be our favorite play from Atlanta, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. But definitely don't be afraid of getting pieces of them here against Toronto.
Especially if you're playing some of the Toronto chalk. I think it just makes sense to run it back with one of the Atlanta guys.
Mhm.
Before we move on to guards, is there any other forwards that we want to talk about here? I mean, Buddy Hield, top of the model value. Gordon Hayward, top of value.
Yeah, I mean Miller for Charlotte's one I had circled,
Mhm.
and then Houston's interesting. I think Jayshawn Tate's out tonight, so that should secure minutes for Jabari Smith. His price came down on DK; he's only 6K there. A little bit tougher to get to on FanDuel at 6.7, but he's been pretty consistent as like a floor play. At 6K, I actually do think he has some upside. And then Terry Eason's price has really shot up, but he's coming off back-to-back 40 fantasy point games, only playing 26 minutes. If he gets a few extra minutes here with Tate out, he could really show out for you, especially on DK at 5,200. Again, overpriced on FanDuel by a little bit, but it's rare that we get guys cheaper on DK. So I actually really like Eason and Smith tonight for Houston, even though it's one of the lower total games on the slate.
Yeah, and Eason is so his price is a little bit higher than we're used to, but he's great because he has like he can get there in regular time, and then
Yeah,
let's say Desmond Bain gets ruled out. I mean, it's only a 3 point spread now. Houston's not like a powerhouse or anything, but
yeah,
there is blowout potential, and Tari Eason usually gets some blowout run where he just puts up monster fantasy scores, and so his minutes are never really going to be there, but he just has such a high usage in his low minutes that I mean he's a good play.
yeah, totally.
Um,
I think that's it.
We actually have Lamar Stevens showing up as pretty good DK value at 3,400. We only have him projected for 16 minutes at 0% ownership. I'm not sure that we have to get there, but it looks like he's a model approved play. So I guess I
Yeah,
don't hate it.
no, I'm glad I was on that before the model got there. That always makes me feel good. But yeah, I honestly think that if the starter's off the floor, they're going to have him in there as a big a little bit, just because he is defensive minded. and he's 6'6", but again, after Batadze, it's not like the Magic are a very big team.
And then FanDuel value, see if anything's different. I mean, Grayson Allen's showing up pretty high on FanDuel value of 4,900, 2% owned. I think that's pretty decent GPP play, regardless of whoever's in or out.
Yeah, Gordon's questionable for Phoenix. I would feel better about that if Gordon ends up sitting. But again, with the whole big three in there, you're going to get really good nights out of Grayson, and then you're going to get the nights where he has single digits. Very much boomer bust, but in tournaments, that shouldn't necessarily prevent you from playing him. So I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, I mean, these guys that are boomer bust, I mean, I want to play them more if the field isn't
Right.
getting there because, they're inconsistent. Like, okay, well, the nights that they're bad, those lineups are dead. But the nights that they're good, I have a chance at winning a tournament playing a player that not a lot of the field's getting to. And so I think those type of plays are great. You mentioned Denny. Think he's a good play. He's not really I mean, I guess FanDuel 21%. He's pulling a little bit of ownership there, but it makes sense. 6K and the highest total in NBA history. And then we have Batum showing up here. Not
Oh
sure we have to
God.
go there. 1%
No.
and 2% owned. I think it's fine to not play Batum. But Sochan is a guy I wanted to ask you about. He was mega chalk a couple games ago. The point Sochan experiment is back on. Are we interested in going back to him after he kind of failed everybody and coming in at low ownership?
I mean, if he's very low owns, I mean, he kind of fits that Grayson Allen mold. Like, he's going to have big games. He's going to have more small games. So I don't mind him as like a high risk play, but he's very, very much high risk. We've seen a lot of floor games out of him lately, regardless of which position he's playing. But it does sound like Pop wants to give him another go at point guard, which should help him in the long run.
And the last forward I want to ask you about, Benedict Mathurin is pulling 22% ownership on FanDuel at 5,200. The 6K price on DraftKings, I have zero interest. But are you playing Benedict Mathurin tonight, or what should we be doing with him?
Yeah, I think it depends how many lineups you're playing, but he's someone I could definitely see getting to. Still no Andrew Nemhard for the Pacers. They have a pretty deep bench, but with Nemhard out, we have seen more secure minutes for someone like Mathurin. We're about to transition to guard. We could talk about TJ McConnell. I kind of feel similarly about him, but yeah, I'm fine with Mathurin. I mean, when he gets hot, he has a very high ceiling. I think he had a 50 fantasy point game a couple nights ago, even though they were pretty
Mm-hmm.
healthy. But he played 37 minutes, which is definitely an outlier for him. So I don't mind him. Again, kind of boomer bust, but in high risk, large field tournaments, he definitely makes sense.
Yeah, with Mathurin, I kind of feel like he just has such a short leash. He's going to get his minutes every game, or I should say, he's going to play every game. But if he's not playing well, he's going to get benched. And if he's playing well, he's just apparently going to play the whole game and put up a
Right.
monster. And
Yeah.
so I don't mind him at that 5,200 price. But like I said, the 6K on DraftKings, I'm probably going to be at 0% tonight.
Yeah. 6K is kind of crazy.
And then let's get into the guard. So since we're already on FanDuel value, I mean, Buddy Hield is showing up as the best FanDuel value by quite a bit. 5,700 coming in at 29% ownership. I mean, if you don't want to play Mathurin, Buddy Hield's fine. He's been off and on too. Hasn't shown us like a super ceiling, but I don't think we need a super ceiling from him tonight, especially in this high total game. I think he's a fine play on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, 66 gives me some pause on DK, but again, he'd make sense in tournaments because you're getting him really low owns. Fine getting to him on FanDuel at 5,700. It is giving me some pause that he's so popular, but I think I'd probably play him at forward more than anything and feel pretty good about that. But yeah, I mean, I think he's chalky, but I was going to say Schroeder is probably my favorite point guard play on FanDuel. Only 6,600, 6,300 over on DK. We like all of these Raptors in this paced up environment. Point guard kind of thin in the mid range tonight. There's plenty of guys to pay up for, but if we're looking for value or like true punts that are actually guards and not these kind of forward hybrids, then I mean it's tough to kind of get away from Schroeder for me, at least in low risk contests, cash games, etc.
Yeah, Schroeder's price, he should probably be priced a little bit higher because it's not that much of a decision to play him. He's a good play at 6,300, even the 6,600 on FanDuel.
Mhm.
And then while we're on Indiana, I love seeing one of the most expensive players on the slate show up as number 2 in FanDuel value, Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, 10-9 on FanDuel. We talked about this last time. His price is really high, but I mean, he's still coming in for 26% ownership. I think he's a fine play to get to.
Yeah, probably my favorite pay up on FanDuel, honestly. Again, there's better value at center tonight. Not really going to have to pay up for Embiid. There's a lot of mid range plays to like at the forward positions. But first made build I made on FanDuel tonight, I think it's the $50 SC. Halliburton was one of my first guys in. 10-9 feels a little cheap. On DK, you got to pay a little bit more, but you're getting him at really low ownership. Again, record setting total here. Probably the best player on that team. I don't think many would argue with that. Coming off a couple of games where he hasn't been playing extended minutes, but I think it was because they got blown out by Milwaukee, or that game got out of hand. I think we could see a ceiling game out of Halliburton here, and it's been a few nights since we've seen that, since that in-season tournament, really. So yeah, happy to get there, especially low ownership or reasonable ownership on FanDuel.
Yeah, and he's gonna be man. Jordan Poole's gonna be on skates all night. I love it.
Yeah.
And the other expensive guy showing up kind of near the top of FanDuel value, Terry Rozier, a play that I love. I didn't realize he was 9,100 over on FanDuel, but he's still pulling 14% ownership. I mean, he's been fantastic without LaMelo out. He's kind of just doing everything for that team. I think he's a great play on both sites. That question about top three plays, I think he is going to be one of my top three GPP plays anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you on Rozier. I know we've both been heavy on him ever since LaMelo was ruled out. He's playing like 37, 38 minutes a night, which is rare for anyone, really. And not the best matchup against New Orleans, but they both play pretty fast. They're at home, so hopefully this game stays competitive. I like him a lot here. And like you said, he does it all.
And sorting by OF index, I mean, it's Tyrese Halliburton so far and away at the top, followed by Devin Booker and then Terry Rozier. So the model is telling us we should be playing Terry Rozier and Halliburton. Very happy to play as much of whatever I get from the builder of those guys. And then Devin Booker, I think he's kind of been your guy a little bit. But are we shying away from him tonight with the big three back in this matchup?
I mean, he still has the upside, but I'd so much rather just pay for Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be tough for me to get there. Again, they're all healthy now. That's definitely going to lower his usage rate. He's still going to have those outlier games where he puts up a massive score. I don't mind it, but honestly, if I'm playing a guard in that late game, it's probably Brunson. A little bit cheaper. Hasn't really been hitting his ceiling as consistently, but his price is down as a result, 8,200 on both sites. So yeah, I like Brunson here. I don't mind Booker, but again, with Beal and Durant in, it's going to take them a little while to gel. So he's still going to have big games here or there, but they're probably going to be fewer and farther between. And I think we see his price kind of come down after a few of these games with Beal healthy. So I may just wait until that price dips.
Yeah, I'm not super interested in him tonight either, but I will say that he's showing up at the top of the model at 1% ownership, but I still would rather just pay for Tyrese Halliburton and eat the higher ownership.
Absolutely.
Just looking like Trae Young. I mean, he hasn't had like a 60-point game recently, but I think he's still fine. I mean, he's coming in 14 and 21% ownership. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Do you like DeJounte as a pivot? I usually do. And looking at the ownerships, I think I kind of like that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you get a nice discount there. And he's shown that he can put up 50 fantasy points at that price. That's definitely appealing. You get the shooting guard eligibility with him, so it's even easier to build around him than it is Trae. I mean, I like Trae as a discount off Halliburton if you can't get there, but I like DeJounte as even more of a discount. And maybe there's a little bit of extra usage to go around with no Hunter in the lineup tonight. Should boost all those guys. So fine getting to either of these guards for Atlanta. I think they're priced about where they should be.
And then you mentioned Jalen Brunson. I mean, as long as he stays at this 8K price, I think he's a good GPP play every single day, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he goes on runs where he's scoring like 40 real points a night. I don't know that we're going to see that here, but he has it in his bag. So at that price, I'm happy to roll the dice on him. But yeah, I mean, him, Randall, both really like them from that late game. It's tough to trust any other piece of that Knicks roster right now. I know Barrett's had some good games. The front court's been okay, but yeah, I like Brunson. Always happy to get to him and Randall.
And then just some other guys that we haven't touched on yet. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, 9K, pulling a little bit of ownership. I kind of feel like I'd rather just pay up to Halliburton or pay down to Brunson. But he's fine if you're getting there a little bit. I don't mind him. And CJ McCollum, 7,600, 7,900, pulling basically no ownership with Zion back in the lineup. Are we going back to him at all?
Yeah, I mean, the price does feel a little bit low, especially on DK at 7,600. Zion kind of been hit or miss. The games where he disappears, it's almost like he's not even there. So I don't know if he gets that little bit of usage bump. I mean, if Zion was ruled out, you'd see him as super chalk. So if Zion's not going to have a great game, then I don't know. Logic would tell you that McCollum could. So I don't know. I like him. I love the matchup. Pretty soft defensively here against Charlotte. And yeah, I think the price is pretty much where it should be. So I'm totally fine getting to him with no ownership. I think he's comparable to guys like DeJounte Murray or more popular guys like maybe Brunson, etc., who I do prefer. But as a GPP pivot, makes a ton of sense.
And then just some other like guys in that range that I don't mind showing up in my lineups: Fred VanVleet and Cade Cunningham. I think they're both fine too, along with Jaylen Brown. From the mid range, though, I was actually getting a lot of Devin Vassell, and it looks like the field is too. I kind of like Derek White as a pivot. I didn't realize he was that expensive, but in the mid range, what are your top guard plays today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll call. Does Austin Reeves have shooting guard on both sides? I really like him as a
He
pivot.
should, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Vassell was one of my first guys in, and then I saw the ownership, and I was like, wait, this seems off. So I
Yeah.
let me get there. But yeah, I do really like Reeves as a pivot if you can play him at the guard spot. Just scrolling through here. Someone mentioned Fultz is out again. Um, so maybe that's good for someone like Suggs or Cole Anthony. I think they're both like 0% owned. Um, Neither has been great, but I think they're viable pivots at like a fraction truly of the ownership. But yeah, like I said, I mean, the chalk I'm eating in this range is going to be Schroeder. I'd much rather go to him than I would Vassell. And yeah, I'm fine getting up to Derek White if you can, or really just playing a lot of Reeves. And I don't know. It's a weird kind of range tonight. Like, I think you're paying up for Halliburton in a lot of builds or one of these other high price guys and then landing on a lot of Schroeder. So I don't know how much I have to live in this mid range. I did just want to bring up Derrick Rose once again. I think he's fine as a punt. Kind of limited upside if Bane is in, but if Bane is out, he's someone you're going to want in your lineups. He's been tremendous when he's been given that extra usage. So yeah, I think even with Bane in at 5K, he's viable. I honestly think point per dollar, he's almost as good as Vassell here. Both kind of inconsistent, but if Bane's out, I'd much rather get to Rose. And I don't know that the field's going to be making these pivots on a Friday night, especially with a lot of these games locking early.
And we did just get news that Bane is on track to play. Now it's not
God.
100%, so like wait for the actual confirmation that he's going to be in the starting lineup. But with the field
That's
thinking
funny.
Bane's in, that would make Rose an even better play on maybe, I don't know, 10 to 20% chance Bane ends up sitting after all.
Yeah, it's probably a long shot now. Usually when they say they're on track to play, they do. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I'll eat the chalk with Schroeder. Don't mind Vassell, but at the ownership, I don't know. I'd just rather pay up if I can.
And just one thing I want to point out about Reeves, regardless of whoever sits, the model has not been on him at all. I don't
At
know if it's
all.
taking time for him to adjust, bench versus starting. I don't know if the model takes into account for that, but projected for 27 and a half minutes. He's hasn't really been playing much more than that, maybe a few minutes. But this is one play where we're going beyond the model, and it's been working out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind Austin Reeves even at this elevated price tag, but I do like D'Lo as a pivot. Although him having a headache, migraine, whatever, kind of makes me a little bit more hesitant to want to get there.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on ownership. I mean, if D'Lo's ruled out, Reeves could just see a major spike, and then he wouldn't be quite as appealing. Then I'd probably get back to some Vassell, honestly. But yeah, as things stand, I really do like Reeves, and like you said, the model hasn't been agreeing, but I don't know. It's like 6, 7 games in a row now where he's been around value. I mean, back-to-back games with 8 assists, pretty high floor lately for Reeves, so I do like him here.
And just sorting by DK value, it is Dennis Schroeder at the top. I don't think we have to shy away from playing him. I think the ownership is actually in check, 23% and 18%. That's not bad at all. Terry Rozier, Tyrese Halliburton next in line. Love them both as GPP plays. And then we mentioned Devin Vassell pulling ownership. Model agrees it's appropriate. Other guy I wanted to mention, Tyus Jones over here in this kind of lower mid-range, 5,600 and 5,900. He is pulling 15% on DraftKings, but in the highest total in NBA history, I think he's fine to get to as well.
Yep, that just reminds me, speaking of highest total in NBA history, with Nemhard out, we've actually been seeing 15 to 18 minutes a night for TJ McConnell,
Mhm.
which comes with some risk. He's just under 5K on both sites. But if there's ever a team that's going to provide him with steal upside, which is what you're usually looking for when you go to McConnell, I like him here as a punt. I think if you don't want to go to Derrick Rose with Bane in, I think for a little bit cheaper, you go to McConnell. And yeah, I mean, there is some risk just because you don't know that he's going to get that extended run, but we have seen him play in blowouts, which boosts his upside. I mean, if he's playing well, he's going to get good run here. So more so in lineups, maybe you're not getting to Halliburton, but I do really like TJ McConnell as kind of a sneaky, I don't know how sneaky, I got to check the ownership guard play, but I do like him as long as Nemhard's out.
I don't mind it, even at this higher price. Like you said, I mean, it's only an 8.5 point spread, but we know how bad Washington's been, how many blowouts they've been involved in.
Hmm.
And it looks like he is going to be in line to get the blowout run. They just don't really have another player who can come in and run the offense for them, even
Right.
even at the end of games. He's kind of a vet at this point, but We've seen TJ McConnell be fantastic recently, and so I like that call. Don't play him in the same lineup as Halliburton, though.
Right.
Kind of hoping for two different outcomes if you do that.
Exactly.
Any other guards before we go ahead and just build a quick dummy?
I think that's it. I think the Celtics guys are fine. Just keep an eye on ownership. If they're not popular, they definitely make some sense. But I think we touched on everyone.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of dudes today.
Hmm.
And so back to that question, favorite three plays from everything we've talked about. I mean, we can just sort by ownership and see where the field's getting, but I'd rather, I think, give out our favorite three GPP plays that the field isn't getting to.
Right. So yeah, that the field's not getting to. I'll say Reeves for me. I think that's kind of contrarian. I think if some of those guys are ruled out for LA, maybe he becomes more popular. But certainly as things stand, I'll say Randall as well, floating around 15% on both sites. You're going to want a piece of that late game. Like there's no math saying you need a piece of a late game, but trust me, if you're sweating end of the night, just watching your lineup fall and fall and fall because you have no pieces of that, it sucks. So there's no real math to that. There's no real strategy to it. But me personally, I'd rather be cheering for Randall at the end of the night. He's my favorite piece of that game there. So I'll throw him in there as well. And then, yeah, I'll stick to McConnell. I think he's sneaky enough. I do really like the upside against Washington. Plenty of steals to be had against guys like Kuzma and Poole.
And so Kada at this high ownership, I think he's fine. But other than him, I'm just going to keep it simple and say Rozier, Randall, and Barnes are probably my three favorite GPP
Oh, yeah.
plays today. They're all expensive.
I
Probably
like
hard to
them
fit
all.
all three, but yeah, I think they're all pretty good plays, and all their ownerships are pretty reasonable. Just a guy I noticed scrolling down here, Jose Alvarado at 3,600 on DraftKings is pulling 8% ownership. It seems a little high, but I actually don't mind it against the Charlotte team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same logic as you have with TJ. You probably want a few stocks in there. Dyson Daniels was getting decent run at point guard before Alvarado was back. Seems like they're splitting minutes, but kind of similar to TJ McConnell, Alvarado does have a high fantasy point per minute rate. So even if he's only playing 15 to 20 minutes, pretty good shot to hit value at a very cheap price. So I like that call.
And Herb Jones, kind of along the same lines with Charlotte being a little bit more turnover prone. He pulled a ton of ownership, let everyone down. Trey Murphy came off the bench and dominated. I want to see what Trey Murphy's ownership was coming in at. 1% on both sides after putting up a 50 ball. You got to love it. So 5,500, 5,800 versus Herb Jones, 5,700 on both sides. Even with Zion back in the lineup, Trey Murphy, maybe he loses a couple minutes, but we've seen him capable of exploding for a big game in less minutes. I think they're both fine to mix in a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's tough. I mean, Jones, Murphy, Marshall. I think one of them goes off tonight. Roll the dice and figure out which one it's going to be. But I would be fine having any one of those three in a lineup. Probably wouldn't want more than one. But yeah, it's a good matchup definitely against Charlotte.
What time is this game? So that game starts right at lock, so it's not a situation where we can plug them in, hope some value opens up, and swap them later.
Yeah,
Probably not going to have many of those situations today unless we're plugging in guys from like Houston or Memphis, and maybe something happens. Maybe a couple guys on the Lakers are rolled out that opens some stuff up.
right.
But
Yeah, I will say the one guy I'm really going to want to get to is going to be Rui. I think. Again, we have Prince, Reddish, and Russell all questionable. If any one of them are out, that should get Rui solid. I don't know, up to 20 minutes, and if two of them are out, maybe you get 25 plus. So Hachimura is a guy that I'm hoping to get to here, but if they're all in, it's probably something to get away from. So just wanted to talk through that quickly.
and so who's the first guy in on DraftKings for you? Is it Kada? Just
Yeah,
keep it
let's go,
easy.
Kata. Yeah, I think it's unavoidable at this point.
And okay, so after the obvious chalk, where do we want to start our lineup with?
I mean, maybe Schroeder. He's kind of
I like it.
obvious,
Yeah,
but
I like it.
I think you kind of need him there. We both like Randall. I think he's.
Yep. Let's put Randall in the forward spot since he's in the last game. Sure, we'll find another power forward we like. Small forward. Do we want to try to fit in one of Rozier or Scotty Barnes? Maybe Rozier. It sounded like we were both on him a little bit
Yeah, I
more.
mean, I like both, but let's go Rozier. I think it's a little cheaper.
Leaves us 5,800 for each position. I don't hate it. I'm kind of drawn to Keldon Johnson at his price. Him or Austin Reeves both look good at the small forward position.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could go with either. Keldon probably a little bit safer, also a little bit more expensive. He's 7K.
Not
Yeah,
sure.
let's go Keldon. I think.
All right, let's do it. And this is like he's not pulling low ownership, but he's not chalk either. So this is kind of a little bit of a leverage piece for us. Power forward. You mentioned Avdia. We want to try to get that in there.
Yeah, I mean, I do prefer him on FanDuel, but it's barely a price hike on DK, so I'm definitely happy to get to some Denny here.
Or you mentioned Jabari Smith as well. Tari Eason.
Yeah, I mean, those actually instead of Avida, let's go with one of the Houston guys. I think if you're talking about the pricing between the two sites, the Houston guys are definitely more appealing on DraftKings. So either
Let's,
or, I mean, happy to get to Smith or Eason.
let's throw Tari Eason. Gives us a little bit more salary flexibility, and then for our second guard, I mean, Anunoby is probably, I guess, kind of the chalk, but I'm not loving him at the price. I think I'd rather find a pivot if we can. Do we want to try to fit in Reeves and then leaves
Yeah,
us?
yeah, I've been tooting the Reeves horn so much, might as well go there. Hopefully, one of these guys end up ruled out for LA, and he still comes off the bench. Like I'm hoping they start like Max Christie for Reddish or something. That'd be ideal. So yeah, Reeves definitely a solid one. And then what are we left with?
Gives us
45.
4,500. We just had a comment in the chat that Twitter is saying Anthony Davis is expected to be out. I haven't gotten any kind of notification on
Let me
that,
check
but
that. Yeah, I'll
oh,
refresh.
someone reported it. One of the Lakers beat reporters, Anthony Davis, appears to be out tonight. He's sitting in front of his locker in a gray sweatsuit an hour before tip off. Yeah, so until it comes in on Underdog, it's not confirmed. But let's go ahead and let's build our lineups as if AD is sitting. It sounds like that's the case.
Yeah, so LeBron, definitely get LeBron.
All right. So do we take someone out to fit in LeBron?
I mean, we have to, right? We have to take out
Yeah.
Randall, maybe.
Yeah, let's take out Randall. Let's see. I kind of like running Keldon Johnson back with LeBron. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit it in. I mean, 3,600. One of the Boston guys, Brissett. I don't know if we want to go that deep. I mean, Jose Alvarado's 3,600. It's not a bad one either. It's last guy in.
Yeah, go Alvarado. I like that one.
All right, so it's pretty good. It's not a bad one. I think the main core pieces are Kada, Schroeder, and then the rest of these guys are slight GPP pivots, I guess, but they're guys that we both like a lot tonight. They're going to be showing up in our cores anyway. I'm not sure how chalky LeBron's going to get. I mean, the news is coming out. It's not late or anything, but a half hour till lock. I think we should be really interested in Lakers, but with AD out, who is this going to directly benefit? My first thought is Jackson Hayes.
For me, it's Rui. I just don't trust
Okay.
Hayes. He sucks. I just think, I mean, if Hayes starts, he's going to be tough to get away from. But dude, he's just, I mean, has he hit 20 fantasy points once this year? I think he did once. And these guys do rest on occasion. For me, Rui, whenever I can get him with extended run, I really like to play him. But I don't think you're wrong to go to Hayes. But for me, it's probably Rui.
It's just who's going to start at center because I mean they can't put Rui on Wembanyama, right?
No, you're right. Oh wow, is it Vanderbilt?
I feel like Vanderbilt's a little bit too small for that
He
too,
is
but
too small. So I guess you're right. It's Hayes. They don't want to go to Christian Wood.
yeah, Christian Wood as a man min price.
Turnstile.
We signed him for the minimum, so
I mean, I like the player. I just don't like the fit with the team necessarily. I don't know if you saw that clip of D'Lo. It was like a media day thing. And they're like, "Who's the last player you'd want to play against?" And he's like, "Probably Christian Wood. He's our best defender." Like he must be trolling, right? Like what is he saying? But yeah, I thought that was weird. But yeah, if Hayes starting at center, you just go Hayes.
there was a Twitter thread last season. It had to be like 100 tweets long of Christian Wood playing defense, and every single clip was him playing very poorly on defense.
Yeah.
So, but it's like someone has to play. I mean, I feel like Christian Wood enters the rotation tonight. He's only been getting a couple garbage time minutes in the recent games. But if AD's out, like this is definitely a significant piece of the slate. That game starts a half hour after lock. Maybe we don't get the AD news or the starting lineup before the original lock. And so I don't know. I kind of think Jackson Hayes has to start, probably plays. We'll probably project him for like 20 minutes if AD is confirmed out. And then after that, I mean, Vanderbilt, Rui, we don't even, especially if a couple of the other guys are ruled out, it's even harder. But I think LeBron is probably the safest piece from the Lakers
LeBron
tonight.
Definitely the safest piece, and I'd say keep an eye on the starting lineup. It is notable Wood did get 21 minutes last time with LeBron out. So maybe they're more willing to go back to him here. But again, keep an eye on the starting lineup. Whoever starts at center, we have seen LeBron start at center in certain matchups, but I think I'm with you. I don't know that they can do that against 7'6" Wemby here. That's probably not ideal.
Yeah, just keep an eye on the news. And then, honestly, whoever's in for the Lakers is probably going to be a good play. It sounds like they're going to be shorthanded no matter how the news breaks. So if you have any questions, pop in the Discord, and hopefully we can answer them for you. I think Eric is probably starting our Discord live right about now, or maybe he just started it. So jump in there, get a little bit more one-on-one action. Usually gives like a little preview of his core plays anyway. And so any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, just apologies for frequently wiping my nose throughout the video. It's winter here in Boston, and definitely coming down with a cold. But yeah, I mean, keep it on that Lakers lineup. That's very important. I mean, that's really kind of the pivotal piece of the slate to keep an eye on. Everything else seems like we already have the news that we need. So load up on that Indiana Washington game if you can, and leave some wiggle room for these Lakers. Maybe get Randall in as a late night hammer and print. Let's make money tonight.
Let's print. I love it. Appreciate you guys for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow.